Welcome to this session on framing definitions. In this session, we will discuss the meaning of the concept definition and guidelines to frame definition, and then I will explain framing a definition with one example at the end. Okay. Now, moving on to understand what is the meaning of definition. Definition you have been writing and learning over a period of time for different subjects. So let's understand what exactly meant by a definition. Okay. Now, definition is a statement that explains meaning of a concept. Usually, there are under different subject we use different concepts very specific to those subject itself. Like in the field of engineering, you might be using different technical terms. So an explanation of those technical terms in a statement is called as a definition. Okay. Now moving on to understand why do we need definitions? A definition is basically part of various technical writings like object and process descriptions. So you often need to explain the technical terms that you are using in the technical writings in the form of definition. And a definition in these technical writings help in forming a common understanding between you and your reader. It is also important for accurate communication of technical terms and concepts. Like you talk about the word communication. Now, this communication, for the communication field, a person in the field of communication skill can have a different meaning than communication, the meaning of the word communication for an electronics or ENTC student. For them, it's a communication means when the message is transmitted digitally, right? But for a person in the field of communication skills has a different understanding. So a definition helps in accurate communication of technical terms and concept. Okay. Now, moving on to understand how to frame definitions with the help of these guidelines. So you may say that why we need to frame a definition first of all, right? We just discussed why we need definitions, but why you need to frame definitions when there are many sources from where you can quote definitions. But let me tell you that we all can frame our own definitions of the technical terms by following these guidelines. And the first guideline to frame, if you have a technical term to define, first thing that we need to do is frame a definition using only one statement. Now, statement is a sentence which describes something, right? So, a definition is a statement that describes a concept. Second, we should prefer a present tense for writing a definition. And third is use quotation marks in the beginning, at the end, and at the end of the definition. Third, use synonyms rather than variants of original term while explaining the meaning of the concept you are defining. I will explain this point while explaining the example. Next, identify the broader category of the term and narrow the scope if possible. So for defining any terminology, you need to identify the category of the term category of that particular term that it belongs to. And if possible, you need to narrow the scope of that particular terminology. Narrow the scope of the category of that particular term that you are defining. Okay. Now, moving on to know the different categories a technical term can belong to. Let's have a look at these categories or class of technical terms. A technical term can belong to the category of instruments. Now, when we call something as an instrument, when it is an object used for precise measurements and for delicate tasks. For example, a drafter that you generally use during engineering drawing subjects to take special very precise measurements. So you call a drafter is an instrument. Now moving on to the second category, a technical term can belong to is a tool. A tool is something that is held in a hand and is an object that is held in a hand to perform a manual task. For example, a hammer. Hammer is something that we hold in a hand to perform a particular task manually. Then the third category a technical term can belong to is it can be a device. A device is something we call as an which is designed to perform. Device is an object which is designed to perform a specific function. For example, a calculator. A calculator, we don't call it as an instrument, but it is a device, and it is a device which is designed to perform specific function of arithmetic, say arithmetic calculations. Okay. Now moving on to the next category, that is a machine. So a technical terms can belong to the category of machines. We can classify it as a machine. And machine is an object with fixed and moving parts that modifies mechanical energy and help you to perform a specific task. For example, a lathe machine that you work on during your workshop practicals. All right. The next category of technical terms can be a mechanism, that is a system of parts that operates like a machine. So it's not a complete machine in itself. It has different system of parts which operate together like a machine. Okay. Now next is a process. Next category is of the technical term could be the process. So a technical term can be called as a process when it involves a series of steps to achieve carried to achieve a result. Okay, so these are the different broader categories or classes that a technical terms can be classified into or can be defined into. Okay, then once these categories are understood, let's have a look on how to frame a definition. To frame a definition, there are three essential components of a definition. Let's have a look at these components in this diagram. A definition must have a concept, a class, should define a class or category of that concept, and should mention a distinguishing feature which makes it a feature that distinguishes that particular concept from the other concepts in the class or the category. So these three components help you form a definition. Let's have a look at one with how to frame a definition with these three components with one example. Let's take one concept, that is resistor. So resistor is a concept that we are going to define now. Okay, so we have taken that concept of resistor. Now we go on defining its class, its category that the resistor belongs to. And as a student of engineering, you all know resistor is a device. Okay, so resistor is a device. Now device is a broader category, but our guideline says if possible please narrow down the category. So what we say is resistor is an electronic device. So we use electronic to narrow down the category of the concept or the class of that concept. Okay, so the broader category is it is a device, and the narrow category is it is electronic device. So what we have done, we have taken a concept, we have identified its class or category. Now we need to include the feature that makes a resistor different from other electronic devices. So that characteristic is a register is an electronic device that controls and opposes flow of current. That controls and opposes flow of current in electronic circuits. So this is the distinguishing feature which makes a resistor different from other devices. Now, one guidelines I specifically want to highlight here. We could have used this particular term as resistor is an electronic device that resists the flow of current in electronic circuits. But use of the word resist is creating confusion, right? It is not clearing the meaning of the concept. So what we need to do, instead of using the word resist, which is a variant of resistor, we have replaced this word with a synonym called controls and opposes. So you can notice this definition fulfills all the conditions of framing the definition. So we see that this is a definition in one statement. It is in present tense. We have identified the three components are included, that is a concept, the class or the category it belongs to, the class or category the concept belongs to, and we have also included the distinguishing feature. And the last thing that you notice is there is a use of double inverted commas, which is the quotation marks. Okay, so I hope now you can define various technical terms and terminologies that you will be using in different technical writings, especially while writing your project reports and process descriptions and object descriptions. So that's all for now. Thank you so much.